Maharani Gayatri Devi of Jaipur is arguably one of the most glamorous Indian queens in royal history. With her doe-like eyes, jet black hair, and elegant fashion sense, she remains a timeless fashionista from the Indian subcontinent. Her most iconic and classic look would probably be her very dreamy pastel chiffon saris and pearl necklaces. Her signature aesthetic has become almost a de facto uniform for Indian royals. But her legacy is not just limited to her classic style. She lived an extraordinary life as a princess of Kuch Behar, the third Maharani of Jaipur, a politician in democratic India, a philanthropist for women and girls of Rajasthan, and an advocate for preserving the cultural heritage of Rajasthan. But we must remember, Maharani Gayatri Devi led a fascinating life of a bygone era. Born in 1919, she was royal from birth and lived in the lap of luxury. She was fluent in English, French, and Bengali, and shot her first panther at the age of 12. She loved listening to Frank Sinatra and Cole Porter records. She attended exclusive events around the world, like polo matches and parties, and was a part of very elite social groups. She was also very athletic, playing many kinds of sports, and she was an avid equestrian. From childhood to adulthood, she was in the company of influential people. Some of my favorite historical photographs are these, where Maharani Gayatri Devi and the Maharaja of Jaipur hosted former American First Lady Jackie Kennedy in Jaipur. When she married the Maharaja of Jaipur, she was his third wife. Ultimately, she abandoned the parda system expected of her and became a force on her own. Later, as a politician in democratic India, she faced many struggles. Most famously, she was unjustly imprisoned during the emergency declared by then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Maharani Gayatri Devi was able to connect with her constituency. A landslide victory in 1962 went down in India's electoral history. A few years later, in September 1965, Vogue ranked Maharani Gayatri Devi as one of the 10 most beautiful women in the world. This was the contrasting and compelling nature of her life. In this video, I explore the eternal style of Maharani Gayatri Devi. I focus on her fashion influences, her cosmopolitan upbringing, and her role as the Maharani of Jaipur. What was it that made her such an enigma? If you are new here, hello, I'm Tass and I discuss fashion, film, and culture from the Indian subcontinent on my YouTube channel. This video is a part of my new series titled Maharaja Swag and Maharani Style, Stories of Royals from the Indian Subcontinent. Maharani Gayatri Devi led one of the most fascinating lives that I've ever come across. I think the best place to start in trying to decode the enigma and the style of Maharani Gayatri Devi is by reading her memoir. I loved reading this. It is truly a peek into a world that is so far from the ordinary. But there is a lot that Maharani Gayatri Devi leaves out of her memoir. She keeps certain aspects of her life completely private by not even mentioning them in her autobiography at all. Understandably, she was a royal from birth, and for a royal of her time, discretion was very much a part of her DNA. This is where the second book that I want to discuss and recommend to you comes into play. The House of Jaipur by John Zabriskie is one of my favorite books on the topic of Indian royals. The Australian historian sets out the reality and the tragedies that plagued the Maharani and the Jaipur royal family in their lifetime. His research is extensive. I read both these books and would recommend reading the Maharani's autobiography first and then reading The House of Jaipur. Maharani Gayatri Devi and her mother, Maharani Indira Devi of Kuch Behar, are both widely credited with popularizing the chiffon sari in India and ushering the trend into Indian fashion. In the mid-19th century, French chiffon had already captured the fascination of the aristocracy in Europe and the United States. The fabric was considered to be the definition of luxury. In the early 20th century, the fabric caught the attention of Maharani Indira Devi. Devi, the mother of Maharani Gayatri Devi. Maharani Indira Devi loved European luxury items, including shoes, bags, and jewelry. On a trip to France, she fell in love with this chiffon fabric and decided to make a sari with it. For a long time thereafter, Indian royals would order chiffon fabric from France to make their saris, with the finishing touches like borders and embroidery being completed in India. In her memoir, Maharani Gayatri Devi shares that her mother was extremely fashionable and that she had the best taste, knowing where to shop all over the world. She credits her mother as being her style influence. She also confirms that her mother was the first person to start wearing saris made of chiffon, a fabric that was cooler than silk and more formal than cotton. I learned style from my mother. She was one of the most fashionable, most independent, and most modern Maharanis ever. She always knew the best places to buy anything, and she shopped all over the world. Maharani Gayatri Devi was actually called by the pet name Aisha by her family and close friends. She explains that her mother was reading the book She by Rider Haggard during her pregnancy, and the name of the main character of the book was Aisha. Her mother took a liking to that name for her daughter. Maharani Gayatri Devi also shared that the English staff at her childhood palace could not pronounce Gayatri, so they called her Princess May because she was born in the month of May. But for everyone else and for everything else, Gayatri Devi was her name. Growing up, she was a self-proclaimed tomboy. In reading her story, it is very reminiscent of Princess Diana's, who was also not really interested in fashion and style while growing up. She was one of 5 children born into a very progressive Indian royal family. I, on the other hand, was careless and messy. Always in a hurry, happiest when I could wear just the pajamas and loose comfortable tunics that is the usual informal dress among us. Disdaining jewelry, in agony when Ma said that we must wear saris on formal occasions. She was very skinny growing up with short, straight hair. She preferred activities like riding horses, big game shooting, and tennis. She actually went on her first shoot when she was just 5 years old. She was very athletic and she continued these sporting passions into adulthood. Her schooling was very international. She had Bengali tutors, an English governess who taught English history, literature, and French. Also, mathematics and Sanskrit was a part of her study. For another time, she attended Shantiniketan, the experimental institution founded by Rabindranath Tagore, then school in London, and later the Brilliant Mont International School in Lausanne, Switzerland. One of my favorite stories about her childhood as a young, well-traveled little Indian princess relates to the luxury London department store Harrods. She relayed how the family moved to a house just across from Harrods in Knightsbridge, where as a very young child she would go to the toy department at Harrods, either herself or it seems with an aide. She mentions a Mr. Jefferson in her memoir, who was the manager of Harrods at the time, who did not send her home but took every order that she made for toys. He would accept my orders and take my instructions and put my purchases down to the account of Princess Gayatri Devi of Kuch Behar. The whole performance was a child's dream come true, and after my initial success, I went to Harrods every afternoon for the next few days. My shopping sprees were not discovered until our English governess protested to my mother that she was giving us far too many presents and that we would all be utterly spoiled. A little investigation disclosed the truth. I can still remember my mother's slightly hoarse, deceptively gentle voice saying into the telephone, "But surely, Mr. Jefferson, you didn't take Aisha's orders seriously." The family continued to travel a lot even after the untimely death of her father, the Maharaja of Kuch Behar. For most of her memoir, her love story with the Maharaja of Jaipur reads like a romantic fairy tale. There was an age difference between them, and she had a major crush on the handsome polo-playing playboy prince who took an interest in her. Their romance was a secret for a long time, as their union was not really ideal. While unmarried in London, she was a social butterfly, attending parties, riding horses, and vacationing everywhere, including Cannes, Budapest, Vienna, and Prague. She even enrolled in the London College of Secretaries, learning typing, accounting, and, as she put it, other practical skills. I wore Western clothes, traveled by bus and underground, and could say, in all honesty, that I liked doing something concrete, liked working regularly. During these years as a young adult, Maharani Gayatri Devi wore very Western clothing, like pants, slacks, and shirts. She also smoked. I guess it was considered the vibe and cool for that time. And this is one of the most famous pictures of her from her youth. That is why when she married into the conservative house of Jaipur, she was considered to be much more westernized than any bride they had ever seen before. In Europe, she led a full social life, with the restrictions, of course, of being a young Indian princess. But in comparison to other Indian royal women of the time, she had quite a progressive and cosmopolitan upbringing. The Maharaja of Jaipur brought up the topic of marriage to her while they were driving around London in his Bentley. To show that he was serious about an engagement, he gave her a diamond ring. On the 17th of April 1940, Aisha wed Jay. Because she was admittedly unsure of what was considered fashionable and stylish, her mother, Maharani Indira Devi, chose everything for her wedding trousseau, meaning the clothing, the jewelry, and the other items that a newlywed royal bride would need. Her mother ordered a lot from Europe for her daughter, including sheets and towels from Florence and Czechoslovakia, shoes and matching bags from Ferragamo in Italy, silk muslin nightgowns from Paris, and the rest of her clothing from Calcutta. When allowed to order some saris on her own, Maharani Gayatri Devi confessed that she didn't even think about it and chose whatever. The owner of the store actually called Maharani Indira Devi because he was concerned by the young royal bride's questionable choices. She, meaning her mother, Maharani Indira Devi, undertook to shop for me herself, and by the time she had finished, I had over 200 saris of various kinds in plain and patterned chiffon, with and without borders, some hand embroidered in gold and others of simple heavy silks. Each one was superb, and over the next few years I felt deeply relieved that my own choice had been superseded. She received a lot of luxury items as gifts before her wedding, including a black Bentley from the Nawab of Bhopal, an American luxury vehicle from a noble in Jaipur, a house at the foothills of the Himalayas from her Baroda grandmother, and a lot of jewelry. Not only did Maharani Gayatri Devi have a fleet of luxury cars throughout her lifetime, she had a private plane available to her for use since the age of 21. The private plane situation changed, however, later in life, when the Jaipur royal couple had to reduce their expenses in the ever-changing political landscape of India. Maharani Gayatri Devi really grew into the glamorous and stylish woman that we know her as in her role as the third Her Highness of Jaipur. The culture and customs of her husband's land was new to her. That included the clothing that was worn by Rajputana women. My maids helped me change into another Rajasthani costume, still in the auspicious pinks, reds, and oranges, and to put on more traditional jewelry, never forgetting the dozens of ivory bangles. The whole of that first period of my life in Jaipur had an unreal quality. I found myself performing actions as if I were in a trance, changing my clothes over and over again, acknowledging introduction after introduction. Attending polo matches, playing tennis, and big game shooting also occupied her time as a newlywed in Jaipur. But it was the expectation of the Parda system for mostly women from royal families and women from families of a quote-unquote higher social rank, an extremely challenging expectation for her to meet. The expectation of the system of Parda at the time was that these women followed a set of social customs whereby they were secluded from public observation. This included living in women's only spaces in the palace or zenana, and the use of veils and other clothing to conceal themselves. Maharaja of Jaipur shared with Maharani Gayatri Devi that he hoped to eventually break this strict system. As time went on, Maharani Gayatri Devi created an all-girls school for girls from these families in Jaipur to encourage young women to come out of Parda. The school had its desired effect in many ways and still exists today. And of course, Maharani Gayatri Devi ultimately abandoned Parda completely, played a significant role in changing the perception of the modern Indian royal woman by wearing what she wore and being a public figure along with the Maharaja of Jaipur. She had one son with the Maharaja who they named Jagat. She accompanied the Maharaja on his travels in hosting and meeting influential people and dignitaries from around the world. In the 1950s and 1960s, the couple really was India's golden couple. Its answer to John and Jackie Kennedy, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. Jaipur royal couple was even a part of the very elite New York social scene. They were the only Indians invited to writer Truman Capote's exclusive and legendary invite-only black and white ball. The Masquerade Ball was considered the party of the century. Everyone wore black and white, with 540 of Truman Capote's closest friends. It was held at the Plaza Hotel in New York City on the 28th of November 1966, and most New York socialites of the time were desperate for an invite. The Maharaja and Maharani of Jaipur, however, were definitely on the list. Also, England became the couple's second home. The Maharaja's love of polo led to England during specific times every year, and the Maharaja's children attended boarding schools in England. Also, they had many friends in England, including Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip. Maharani Gayatri Devi's last known flat in London was at 61 Cadogan Square in the upmarket Chelsea district, very close to Harrods. The flat was prime London real estate. It was last listed on the property market in April 2010, just a year after her death in 2009. Before the flat was sold, her grandchildren visited it, only to find it empty. Everything had been quickly sent to storage. Her grandchildren did say that they could smell her perfume lingering in the flat. Sadly, as a result of the bad blood between the members of the Jaipur royal family, her grandchildren were only able to sort through her belongings from that flat in 2017. Allegedly, many of her most precious items from that flat had gone missing. One of the most interesting things that always comes up regarding Maharani Gayatri Devi was that people who met her said she had an amazing scent and a perfume that lingered in a room. What was her signature perfume? I did some research and I found it, and you can still purchase it today. Shalimar by the French house Guerlain is a legendary perfume in this very beautiful bottle. It is an interesting choice for Maharani Gayatri Devi, as the French cosmetic house Guerlain was inspired by another historical Indian figure to create it. Perfume itself was inspired by Mumtaz Mahal, the wife of Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan, who famously had the Taj Mahal built for his deceased queen. Besides perfume, Maharani Gayatri Devi loved luxury sports cars, and throughout her life she had an impressive collection of them, including Bentleys, Rolls-Royces, Mercedes-Benz, and Jaguar. In her memoir, she describes herself driving around Jaipur without any covering or being in parda in a sports car. In fact, Maharani Gayatri Devi imported the first Mercedes-Benz W126 into India. Her love of luxury cars remained even in her old age. After her death, her baby blue Bentley, believed to have been built in the 1920s, and her 1949 Jaguar remained parked in her garage at her home, Lilypool. Finally, Maharani Gayatri Devi was most well known for her opulent jewelry collection. Some of the most notable pieces from her collection included strands of pearls and necklaces with emeralds, rubies, gold, sapphires, and diamonds set in very delicate designs. Usually, she had matching earrings to complete her regal look. While she had many pieces made by luxury European jewelry brands, her jewelry also reflected India's diverse crafts, like the intricate meenakari work of Rajasthan and the delicate filigree of Bengal. After the death of Maharaja Swag Maharani Style and towards the end of Maharani Gayatri Devi's life, members of the Jaipur royal family started to disagree on the topic of inheritance. Litigation regarding properties between the children of Maharaja Swag Maharani Style is shockingly extensive. Some parties to the litigation passed away while the matters were still pending to be heard by the courts. This is covered fully in the book The House of Jaipur by John Zabriskie. These disputes regarding properties and assets caused major delays, resulting in deterioration of these properties. There was a split in the House of Jaipur. Also, the once opulent palace in which Maharani Gayatri Devi had grown up in West Bengal had become a quote-unquote shadow of its former self. Mismanagement by the last heir resulted in the accumulated wealth being squandered, basically. Also, looters and debt collectors stripped many of the treasures that once existed in the halls of her childhood palace. This unfortunate reality and her overall disillusionment with how she was treated during her time as a politician probably informed the decision that Maharani Gayatri Devi made next. Perhaps fearful that a similar fate might await some of her own treasures, Aisha donated a large collection of her jewelry to the British Museum in the mid-1990s on the condition that the provenance not be revealed until 2029. Palace insiders talk of a large suitcase containing necklaces, earrings, bracelets, pendants, and other pieces pieces, many of them set by Cartier, being sent to London. In 2019, a cabinet containing necklaces, brooches, earrings, and a ring, all set with emeralds, together with other Cartier pieces donated by Aisha, was quietly unveiled in the British Museum. Their provenance is not listed. Maharani Gayatri Devi commissioned some of the most high-end European jewelry brands like Cartier, Van Cleef, and Boucheron to design and make her jewelry sets. These are some of the pieces that she has been photographed in over the years. Number 1, pearl and diamond necklaces. As discussed before, layered pearl necklaces were very much a part of her signature look. We see her wearing a variety of them at official events over the years. Number 2, Cartier ruby set. This Cartier ruby set was created by Cartier in London in 1954. The matching earrings were created years earlier. Reportedly, this necklace could detach and be used as a clip brooch as well. This set is one of the jewelry pieces that Maharani Gayatri Devi donated to the British Museum, and it has already been displayed at a few exhibitions, including in Canada and the US. She donated this with the original fitted green leather Cartier case. This ruby set was reportedly a gift to her from her husband, the Maharaja of Jaipur, and we see her wearing this set at many events in photographs. 3, Cartier emerald set. This Cartier emerald set is another piece that was reportedly donated to the British Museum by the Maharani. The production date for this is the 1930s. Platinum necklace and earrings are set with a specific type of emeralds, and what makes these emeralds distinctive is that the stone is cut and polished into a dome shape with a flat bottom. Also, there is a double strand of diamonds on this piece. The clasp of the necklace features a large emerald as well. It's quite a beautiful piece, and she has worn this for photo shoots as well as portraits. Number 4, gold and diamond necklace. This piece was also reportedly donated by the Maharani to the British Museum, and it comes with matching earrings and a bracelet. We actually have more photographs of her wearing this beautiful necklace. Number 5, bangle. This is another piece of Maharani Gayatri Devi's, a more Indian-inspired piece, I think, but it was created by Cartier in 1937. This is a bangle with diamonds and rubies. The gems are teardrop shaped in order to create the central motif that is more reminiscent of the Indian kundan technique and design. Number 6, emerald and diamond necklace. This Cartier necklace was made in 1937, and it contains emerald beads and diamonds. The clasp is also a diamond barrel. In this portrait, we see her wearing this particular piece. Number 7, Indian necklace. This gold piece was clearly made in India with diamonds, pearls, rubies, and a distinctive teardrop emerald pendant. In the accompanying image, Maharani Gayatri Devi wears this piece at an event. It was reportedly also donated to the British Museum by the Maharani. There is a very famous story of Maharani Gayatri Devi being robbed of her jewels in New York City in the 1970s. Her response to People magazine at the time regarding the incident in New York City was very witty and very indicative of her personality. She basically laughed it off, saying, "Where else could I have had such a fantastic experience for the cost of just a pearl necklace?" I was so curious as to what exactly happened that night. Where exactly did it happen in New York City? Who else, if anybody, was with her when this happened? This incident happened after the death of her husband, the Maharaja of Jaipur. So I did some research and found the actual New York Times article that reported on the incident dated the 27th of October, 1974. Seems that yes, Maharani Gayatri Devi's pearl necklace was taken, but her friend, the Viscountess Harriet de Rozier of Paris, fared much worse after the robbery. Let's read the article together. The headline reads, "Hold-up man gets $40,000 in jewels, Maharani and a Viscountess victims as robber enters limousine on Sutton Place." An armed man robbed an Indian Maharani and a French Viscountess of about $40,000 in jewelry as they were returning by limousine at 3 a.m. yesterday from a dance at the Waldorf Astoria Hotel and a stop at the El Morocco nightclub. The victims were Gayatri Devi, the Maharani of Jaipur and a member of the Indian Parliament, and Viscountess Harriet de Rozier of Paris. Most of the jewels, which consisted of diamond earrings, a diamond bracelet, and 2 diamond rings, belonged to the Viscountess. There's a picture of Maharani Gayatri Devi in this. The Viscount was also with them. The Viscount is with the Harry Winston jewelry firm in Paris. According to the police, the hold-up man shoved the Viscount back into the car as he stepped out. He then got into the rear with the passengers and, brandishing a revolver, forced the chauffeur to drive to York Avenue and 72nd Street. Quote, "I'm not going to hurt you," unquote, the robber said. Quote, "All I want are the lady's jewels," unquote. Viscount said later, "I asked the robber, 'What do you want to do that for?' The gunman replied, 'I need the money.'" He said that he was surprised that the robber had not taken any money from him or Mr. Malvin. As for his wife, he commented, "I guess from now on she won't be wearing all her best jewelry. The Maharani is very wise. She's used to New York and didn't wear much jewelry." The hold-up man got out of the car at York Avenue and boarded a yellow automobile that had apparently been following with an accomplice at the wheel. Detective James Pelican, who is handling the case, said he believed that the 2 robbers had been staked out at El Morocco, the nightclub, and had followed the limousine when it left. The club is a zebra-striped oasis for the wealthy. The Maharani is one of the best-known women in India. A member of the conservative Swatantra Party, she won election by one of the largest pluralities in Indian history when she obtained her first seat in parliament in 1961. She represents about 3 million peasant farmers, workers, and small businessmen from the desert state of Rajasthan. Describing the hold-up, the Maharani said, "I couldn't believe it at first. It seemed like a bad joke, but I really did not think that I was in danger. It was all over quickly." She said that although she had heard much of crime in the city, she had not personally encountered any until yesterday. And then they talk about a couple of other similar incidents that happened. After Indian independence, Indian royals were essentially stripped of their royal privileges. In an ever-changing and unsure political landscape, Maharani Gayatri Devi decided to take charge, setting out a completely new course for her life. She took on the role of politician. Time magazine followed her on the campaign trail. Not in the 14 years of Indian independence has there appeared a candidate with her aura and appeal. She is rich, beautiful, intelligent, and a first-rate politician. Maharani represents the most striking example so far of the return of India's one-time ruling class to national politics. As an emerging political candidate in democratic India, Maharani Gayatri Devi canvassed like every other candidate, and surprisingly, she credits this as the most extraordinary period in her life. She intentionally dressed down and more appropriately for the task of campaigning at villages, but she shared that adornment and traditional ethnic jewelry is beloved by Rajasthani women, including rural Rajasthani women, and they would have perhaps preferred her to be more accessorized. She wrote about this in her memoir. "I thought it best to appear on these occasions dressed as simply as possible, so I wore my usual chiffon saris, but without ostentatious jewelry. Just a pearl necklace and glass bangles on my wrists. But I found when the villagers gathered around to see their Maharani, they were disappointed. The women particularly were horrified that I was wearing virtually no jewelry, not even the anklets that the poorest women among them would certainly own." 1962 was the year of her outstanding landslide victory. Maharani Gayatri Devi won the Jaipur Lok Sabha seat as a Swatantra Party candidate with a major majority. Her victory received recognition from the Guinness World Records as being, quote, "the largest majority won by any candidate running for any election in any democratic country in the world." Despite being very popular with voters, she became very disillusioned with politics and the new government as time passed, especially regarding how the former princes were treated and rampant corruption and lack of service delivery for the people. A significant moment for her, as she describes in her memoir, was when she found out that their home, Rambagh Palace, would have to be converted into a hotel. She describes the change of the palace into a hotel in her memoir with such gravitas, sharing that it really represented a concrete symbol of their vanishing way of life. One of the most challenging times for her, however, as a politician, was when she was unjustly imprisoned during during the state of emergency declared by then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. The conditions in the jail were abhorrent, and she remained in Tihar jail for 5.5 months. She was still able to get through this period with the dignity and grace that she was known for, despite it taking a major toll on her mental and physical health at the age of 56. Although Aisha bonded well with her cellmates, she remained a princess. She was superior to all that she surveyed, a jail official later recalled. She was nice, but always aloof. From England, Jagat sent his mother, while she was imprisoned, embroidery material, books, and the latest issues of Vogue and Tatler. On his twice-weekly visits, Joey brought her food, fresh laundry, and updates to free her. He also smuggled in a transistor radio for her to listen to uncensored news from the BBC. She set up a badminton court and played with the younger women, who were mostly sex workers or pickpockets. For all her stoicism and bravado, Aisha missed her regal comforts. But there was no question of her doing without her colognes and favorite outfits. Virendra Kapoor remembers how during the times assigned by authorities for prisoners to meet visitors, Aisha would come wearing her chiffon sari, the fragrance of her perfume wafting through the air. She stuck to her classic saris, but the Rajmata of Jaipur looked haggard and shell-shocked. Later, the Shah Commission found that the Maharani's imprisonment was totally unjust. Despite being vindicated by the Shah Commission, the Maharani's response to this entire ordeal was her usual combination of wit and humor when she made the following statement about her imprisonment. "I would never hold grudges. Besides, I would have been most insulted if she, meaning Indira Gandhi, hadn't thought me important enough to put in jail." Cecil Beaton was a very famous British photographer, and he is on record stating that Maharani Gayatri Devi was one of the most beautiful women in the world and that he had ever photographed. Indian author Khushwant Singh took Beaton's praise one step further. "In my long life, I have had the good fortune of meeting many beautiful women, ranging from film stars as Ingrid Bergman to a few Bollywood celebrities," Singh once said. However, if asked whom I thought to be the most beautiful of the lot, without hesitation, I would reply, Gayatri Devi of Kuch Behar, Rajmata of Jaipur. She was known for so much more though than just her beauty and her glamour. We have a lot of content of her on social media today as reference material because she was such a high-profile person during her lifetime. And I think that her presence in these photographs and these portraits is so important for historical purposes. Her formal portraits consummate the romantic image of this period in Indian history that the process of photography itself helped to create. Yet, when we scratch beneath the surface, we are rewarded by a deeper insight into a shifting period of history, both aesthetic and socio-political. In 2005, at the age of 86, she was named the brand ambassador for Arisia Diamonds, which she wore while attending the polo season. Maharani Gayatri Devi passed away on the 29th of July 2009 at the age of 90. Before her death, she traveled to London to say goodbye to her many friends amidst her ongoing health challenges. Her home in her later years was Lilypool, a residence once a part of the sprawling Rambagh Palace complex, which unfortunately also became the subject of litigation after her death. With her combination of beauty, elegance, style, and intelligence, Maharani Gayatri Devi propelled the royal house of Jaipur to become synonymous with glamour. She was able to simultaneously exist in two worlds, be it through her clothing, her jewelry, her cars, and of course her courage in the face of ongoing change and challenges. Maharani Gayatri Devi will always remain India's most known and glamorous queen. Her style remains timeless and will always be revisited, referenced, and reimagined by style enthusiasts.